Thank you, Kath, for that great introduction. It's great to be here in Melbourne. I was in Sydney 2 days ago, and I told everyone there that it was one of my favourite cities in the world. But based on the attendance today, I think Melbourne is definitely overtaking Sydney in my estimation. This is the third year that we've run Elevate, and we started with a really bold vision, which was to transform how businesses think about their B2B relationships, both with their suppliers and with their customers, and how they use rebates collaboratively, okay? How we go from a necessary evil, this pain that we have to manage, through to something which can really be a strategic growth driver. And as Kath has said, we've really come a long way in those 3 years, and even in the last 12 months. So I'm excited to be able to share the latest updates with you all today. And we've got some great AI innovators, some great local analysts in the room. We have some customers in the room who are already doing this and will be sharing some of their best practices with us. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to our customers, our future customers, and also our partners. Now, and I mustn't forget, which I did forget very rudely in Sydney actually, also our great local teams. So we have got enablees, as we like to call ourselves here, in Sydney, Melbourne, and Auckland, all in the room today, and they're really leading the charge here in ANZ. Now, before I dive in, I wanted to just share a story. I was talking with the CFO of one of our largest manufacturers about a month ago, and he said to me, he said, Andrew, we have just lost $3.2 million in a single quarter because we couldn't deal with a 15% spike in material costs fast enough. And that kind of thought really stuck with me. $3.2 million lost, and not because of poor strategy or poor planning, but literally because their systems couldn't update at today's kind of pace of change. And this is a story I've heard many different versions of, okay? Many different geographies, many different locations, industries, but it's the same old story. And it's really a world accelerating with commercial systems being stuck in first gear. And you don't need me to tell you that we're just living in extraordinary times right now. I think 2025 in particular has just been a really crazy year, and it's hard to overstate the significance of what's been happening and the change that's been going on. I think that supply chains that took decades to kind of build have actually been reconfigured in some cases in a matter of months. And I spend a lot of my time in San Francisco, and where I sit at my desk, I can see the bay. I can see the Bay Bridge. And occasionally I look up over my computer screen, not too often, and look out, and I can actually see the port of Oakland off in the distance. And normally there's container ships literally zipping in and out all the time, container ships coming and going, and I can see them. But I can say this year, in 2025, there has been periods of months at a time where it's been almost desolate, which again I think is a sign of what's been happening in the economy. And one of our customers is an industrial supplies distributor. They have their own brand in China, so they make their own brand in China, and they ship it into the US and other places. And they told me there was a period of literally 2 or 3 months where they had nothing being shipped, okay? They just had halted all of their shipments because tariffs were being kind of updated and added and changed while these ships were sailing. And they had no idea what the landed cost would be because the ship would arrive and it'd be like, oh, it's a 95% tariff today since it set sail, which is just really, really scary. So they just halted all of that. And there are just so many other stories as well. I could talk all day about those, but just a couple more. One was the CFO of a multi-billion-dollar food supply company, and his team had spent 10 hours on one particular day, 10 hours working out the implications of a particular tariff. And by the time they'd finished, this proposed tariff was cancelled, and the whole thing was just a waste of time. So that was a common one. And we work across many, many different industries. So the typical industries for Enable is manufacturing, retail, wholesale distribution, fast-moving consumer goods. But we also work in industries like financial services and hospitality. And one of our major hospitality customers, they run over 1,000 hotel properties across the US. And they told me that kind of travel into the US from Canada and Europe had been down by up to 70%. 70% down. And of course, that had a massive impact on hotel occupancy and also conferences. So conferences in this quarter, Q3, and also next quarter, Q4, just quite off the charts. I think the other thing is that we've also been kind of really exposed to the takeoff of AI, and I'll talk a lot more about that in a minute. But amongst all this craziness of market volatility and tariffs, and AI is starting to be broadly adopted, and I'm going to talk about that a lot today. But we surveyed around 1,500, Kath, I think it was, 1,500 commercial leaders, VP and above, on what was the impact to them. And you can download this report from enable.com. There's a lot more information I'm about to share, but I wanted to just quickly give you 3 kind of headline numbers to keep in mind. So we found that over 75% of businesses have lost some margin to tariffs already. We found that 34% of costs of goods sold are sitting kind of exposed to tariff impact. So really significant. And then 93% of respondents said that their current level of responsiveness to price changes, how they manage price changes today, risks material loss of profit. Okay, so really kind of big headlines here. And for me, the bottom line from looking at the entire kind of report and feedback was that most leaders said that their current commercial approach to managing trading partners would just not survive the next wave of volatility. Now, who knows what the next wave will be exactly, but I think we all would agree there will be one, just as a question of what exactly it will be, and they said that their current approach just would not survive. So, when we kind of combine that with AI and what we're seeing happening right now, this is really reinventing how we work across every function. And the 4th industrial revolution is well underway. So I'm going to be talking a bit about Industry 4.0 and what that means for all of us. We're just way past the experimentation stage now. This isn't something that's only being used by the visionaries and the early adopters. It really is being used by the mainstream. And I must admit, I've been surprised because I understand, being based in Silicon Valley, tech companies and so on are using AI. That's fine. But I kind of thought when I'm talking with manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, buying groups, all of our customers and partners we work with every day, maybe not such a big impact. But I was wrong. And I'd say every single company that I'm talking to is very interested and needs to understand and wants to embrace this. And it's an essential part of any investment and new project that's going on today. Okay? And I think it was really since generative AI captured the public interest in 2023, so around 2 years ago now, when ChatGPT came out, that was really a turning point. And many CEOs that I'm talking about are not hiring any new people, maybe even not backfilling. And they're asking the question, can you just show me why this job can't be done by AI before we go ahead and backfill or hire a new role? So it is very, very real impact. And the old ways are just not going to cut it anymore. So I will talk about what's next, but before I do that, it's good just to spend a minute to go back and remember how things were, because it can take some time to do that, and we take things for granted. But I remember seeing a clip from Bill Gates of Microsoft, probably it was 10 years ago, and he was explaining how the internet and the World Wide Web would become a seamless extension of our desktop. That would be using our desktop computer, using our word processor or spreadsheet or whatever it might be, and the web would just be a seamless extension of our desktop. And I thought I was quite an early adopter, but I just didn't believe that, because I remembered the dial-up modem and connecting to the internet and how slow everything was, and it's hard to imagine that the internet would just be an extension of our local computer. But just think about that now. How productive are we when we don't have an internet connection? Not very. Most of us can't do much or anything really without an internet connection. And then think about our phone again. The iPhone was launched in 2007. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago. Can you think about that? 2007. I mean, how would we survive now with our Nokia or BlackBerry and no internet connection on our phone? So all of that has kind of changed the world just since 2007. So let's talk about commercial trading relationships and so on in 2007. How were things there in that space? And what I remember is things were much more siloed. Okay, so manufacturers would be in their silo, relatively speaking. They would ship products downstream to, say, distributors and wholesalers who would sit on the products in their warehouse, in their branch, and then a contractor would come in a truck and do business locally, drive in, and buy products. And you really had manufacturers basically dictating terms to distributors and distributors dictating terms to contractors. It was a very linear process and quite siloed. Okay, and in those days, commercial agreements were quite straightforward. There were annual volume rebates, and that they still exist today. But that was most of the agreements were just annual based. There weren't more dynamic, kind of personalized types of deals. And there were also very siloed teams. So I can remember one of our very early customers in Enable, pleased to say they're still a customer today, is one of the largest HVAC distributors. Okay, and they actually had a team that was entirely focused on supplier rebates. That's all they did. And that team was paid a bonus entirely based on the rebate they negotiated with their suppliers. So much so, they had to have a spreadsheet, of course, called a net price tracker. And this is where they had to record, well, we've actually lost a little bit of rebate here, but don't worry because we've got a better off-invoice price. And please pay us our bonus because we haven't, we've still done a good job. That's how kind of blinkered and siloed they were. And then they had other teams that were doing customer rebates and then buy-side pricing and then sell-side pricing. But it was just totally siloed. And often product would come in and they might earn a great rebate on this product, but it would sit collecting dust and then may never be sold. But this team still got their bonus because they'd negotiated a rebate. Okay. The other type of agreement, by the way, that was in silos was good old contract support. And there's many different words for this. But I think contract support was about as collaborative as things used to be, where distributors and manufacturers would try and work together. And a typical scenario would be, I'm a contractor. I just won a contract to build 100 houses in Melbourne. Okay? And I would go into my local builders merchants, my local kind of relationship, and say, okay, I need 100 boilers, I need roofing materials, plastics, all these different things, but I need a deal because I've got 100 and I'm not, what can you do? And the local branch would literally get on the phone and they would start phoning their manufacturers one by one and say, oh, I've got John here, he's got 100, wants 100 boilers, what deal can you do? And often the manufacturer was on their lunch break or on, away, and it would go to voicemail. And that was the speed of pricing, not that many years ago. And of course, you would often lose the business because the person walks out and goes somewhere else. So that I think is, I forget that that's how things used to be, but it really wasn't that long ago. And I think where we are now is, of course, very different. Goods are not simply shipped along the supply chain in a linear fashion. It's much more a just-in-time type of model. Trading partners are collaborating together to win business. And the model I described of phone calls and emails is pretty old-fashioned. It's quite extreme. But let's look at the other extreme. The other extreme would be something like Google AdWords. Google AdWords is, for those of you that have used it, is real-time matching of supply and demand. I can say I want AI-powered rebates as a keyword, probably not a very good one, and it will tell me $7 for that keyword or $3, and it's based on supply and demand. Another example would be pricing for airline tickets. When we want to fly to Sydney, you get a real-time price, and it changes. It's changing all the time. Imagine if you went on to Qantas or Virgin and it said, "I'll come back to you in 2 days with a price." I mean, it's real-time. It's real-time pricing. So this is what I see is going to start happening in the physical supply chain. There will be that real-time pricing. There will be the contractor example of winning those 100 houses, winning those 100 boilers, and being able to go online and get a real-time price quote where manufacturers and distributors are working together, no doubt using AI agents on both sides, just come up with, here's the real-time price. And of course, those that haven't adopted that will really struggle to survive. One of the CIOs who I work with who's very forward-thinking in plumbing and heating, I'll stick with that category for a minute, but it could be anything. He's actually developed a platform that anticipates what support he will get. So rather than phoning and waiting for the manufacturer to agree or decline support, it actually looks at what support have we had in the past based on those attributes, based on this volume, value, all kinds of attributes it takes into account, and it anticipates how much support they'll get, and it assumes they will get it. Now, sometimes it's wrong, but they just true up. And when you have a good trading relationship, you can sort that out later. And 9 times out of 10, it gets it right. So he's providing real-time or near real-time contract support quotes without even getting approval from the trading partner. So that's just an example of the type of thing that I'm seeing companies do, and they're really kind of winning and flying ahead with that. And this same CIO explained to me how much their business had shifted in a 5-year period. He said that 5 years ago, 80% of their business was people turning up in their local branch, and doing business. Now, more than 50% is actually via incoming bids. So that's a huge shift. They don't have people coming into the branch so much. They just have bids coming in. And he said that they can make or lose tens of millions of dollars by how they respond to those incoming bids. They would typically price high because they haven't got real-time true cost information, and they don't want to, they want to make sure they're not losing money. So they price high, and that's a good reason to lose a bid. Too expensive. They would also often just be too slow to respond because they're trying to calculate what's the true cost, what should I be going in at, and it just takes so long to do that by the time they bid, it's just too late. And he said the only thing that's worse than losing because he's too slow is winning, but never being able to make any margin because going in at a price that's too low, and then you win the business, but it's at a loss. So, this is really kind of how things have moved on in the physical supply chain. And for me, what I always come back to is that the biggest success stories is where trading partners are seamless extensions of each other and they're working closely together. They're not in the silos from 10, 15 years ago. It's that they are literally winning business together, serving customers together, and I use this word seamless quite often, but that's what the end customer wants. They want that kind of seamless relationship. And let's just talk about this partnership for a minute and why it is a partnership. Because with distributors, they have great customer relationships. They have great local knowledge. They have a branch network. They understand what construction projects or what's going on in Melbourne or in Sydney or in the location. So they have great knowledge. And manufacturers have great products. They create really innovative, exceptional products. And the customer needs both. The customer wants those great products and choice of supplier, but they also want the local relationship, and they need the local knowledge. So those that can act together as one seamless whole are the trading partners that are winning. And what I've seen through working with certainly hundreds of companies that each have hundreds of trading relationships is this has been adopted by the biggest, most strategic relationships. Okay? What I see is that this will become the norm. This will become why, every single trading relationship, not just the biggest or the most strategic ones, where they're using technology, they're working together, and this will just become the absolute norm. So it's this concept that I'm talking about, or I'm calling Revenue 4.0. And this is Industry 4.0 in the commercial world, okay? Revenue 4.0 is a commercial revolution where human relationships, so we're definitely going to we'll still have human relationships, but human relationships and business relationships are combining with AI and creating value at the pace of change, okay? And for me, this revolution is about revenue being won, earned, and retained by working together with our trading partners. It's about higher quality revenue at better margins, and it's also about more sticky revenue. So it's not just selling, it's winning and retaining and serving customers together. And for me, this is really an era of strategic rebates, which are driving partner alignment. Okay, so alignment between manufacturers and distributors, and really alignment that accelerates the commercial outcomes that both sides want. And that changes over time. So whether it might be we want more revenue, we want more margin, we want better cash flow, we want more market share, whatever it is, using rebates as a way to create that outcome rather than just rewarding past performance or just something that's paid. We're just paying this thing, we don't really know why. I'm amazed how often I find that. Do we just pay this rebate? We don't really know why we pay it, but we've always paid it, so we'll just carry on. So strategic rebates, intelligent pricing. So this is really providing the optimum price to each individual customer in each moment, and also pricing that is responding to changes in the market. Okay, so I gave the examples of Google AdWords or some of the airline pricing. It's got to be dynamic. It's got to change in real time. That word again, seamless, but collaboration, where trading partners are operating on the same playbook. So you've got the manufacturer and the distributor, or the manufacturer and the retailer operating on the same playbook, the same platform, and working together. And of course, speed and precision. That example of the old world going into a local branch and it's all 100%, the relationship is still critically important, but now it's not just a relationship. You've got to be able to respond to bids fast and with accuracy in order to win and thrive. And then to fully participate in this Revenue 4.0 world, we need to have unified commercial platforms. Okay, we need to break down the silos between pricing and rebates. We need to break down the silos between trading partners. And we also need AI-powered insights, which is a huge, huge opportunity. We're sitting on all this data. We're sitting on all these contracts, all these commercial agreements, and now we can actually surface really compelling insights depending on whatever commercial outcome we want. So once again, do we want more cash flow? Do we want more revenue? Do we want more profit? We probably can't have it all at the same time, but we can have a strategy for what's important to us, and we can execute against that strategy. And Revenue 4.0 isn't just about better tools, okay? It's about managing how relationships create value and how we do that in a volatile world. So once again, selling together, winning together, and serving and retaining our customers together. That's really what it's all about. So DealTrack was the very first product that kind of Enable built to try and address this. And this was taken back in 2012, okay? We've had this vision that I'm talking about today for a very long time, and we've been working towards it slowly but surely. And the first beginning of Enable was really on rebates. So again, trying to turn rebates from being a necessary evil into a strategic growth driver. And to do that, I'd kind of seen that rebates were, on average, 100% of the profit that distributors and retailers make. Sometimes it was 400%, sometimes it was 50%, but on average about 100%. And I could see that there was very poor platforms and tools to manage that, and there was huge leakage. So distributors were leaking, and they were also not having their buy-sell decisions informed by the rebates that they had in place. So it was a huge opportunity to really reimagine how rebates could be managed and to create a platform. And to do that, we took a lot of time to study the different trading relationships that people had and kind of what was working well and where there could be improvement. And a big thing that leapt out to me was that the best trading relationships had things called joint business plans, okay? And I work with huge kind of brands and retailers, and they would have these joint business plans to say, we, the manufacturer, are trying to launch this new product. We're trying to get to a certain market share, for example. And we're prepared to pay once you help us to achieve that, Mr. Retailer or whoever. And then the retailer would say, what we need is we need to make a certain margin, or we need to achieve a certain goal. And that's all captured in the joint business plan. And then, of course, rebates can be paid, and the whole relationship can be managed using those joint business plans. And so my early thoughts were, why can't every single trading relationship be like that? Why can't we have joint business plans with all of our customers and all of our suppliers? And that was really the start of the original Enable platform. And you know, a big kind of inflection point, I think, for Enable was about 2019. I actually had started the company in the UK. We'd got some customers, got some success stories, and I actually moved to California. And it was just before the COVID lockdown, so it was really convenient. But of course, we didn't see that coming. But I moved to California, moved to Silicon Valley, we raised some capital, and we started to put rebate management on the map as a category. Now, this is a real thing. Now, everyone in here knows it's a real thing, but the general population maybe still don't, and certainly didn't 5 years ago. And you know, Enable now has more customers on rebate management than any other software company. So we've come quite a long way. We've actually processed $1.85 trillion of rebatable transactions in the last 12 months, which is 87% up on the 12 months before that. So we're starting to get to some scale. And you know, that brings us to our mission here. But what I realized is this is just part of the picture. You know, rebates are just part of the picture, part of Revenue 4.0. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think in this world of unprecedented volatility, pricing agility has become critically important and equally important. You know, the ability to manage pricing. Pricing is really a secret weapon in kind of tackling volatility and also protecting margins. So this was also a huge part of what was required. And this is why Enable made the move to acquire FlintFox earlier this year. And I'm looking forward to sitting with John and having a conversation about that in a few minutes. But it was really about bringing pricing and rebates together in one roof. And FlintFox really helps companies calculate and deliver accurate pricing at huge volume. So whether it's across many different products, suppliers, customers, and in real time. And it really creates a central source of truth for pricing rules, okay, in one place, which can be for any ERP in any channel and any geography and application. So really what we're doing is we're bringing together, as Kath said, you know, pricing and rebates on a collaborative platform which can be used across trading relationships. You know, we can create joint business plans, we can get both sides on the same platform, and adding AI-powered capabilities, which is really, really exciting. And this is all about creating visibility and control and giving people the ability to act with speed in the Revenue 4.0 era. So that's really what we're up to. I find it fascinating, and I've been learning a lot about pricing in the last year or so, steep learning curve, that many companies are actually buying and selling at the wrong price. So this is often because the pricing rules are complicated, and again, it depends on all kinds of factors what the right price would be. And it's also hard to do it fast. So if you've got a customer waiting, or if you've got a customer talking to a call center, or on an e-commerce website, or in a branch, actually being able to generate the correct price in real time is really hard. And so what that means is some companies are actually buying and or selling 10% of their transactions at the wrong price, which is just a huge thing that we need to fix. And that's the type of thing that we can do with FlintFox. So I think, you know, speed and unification are a big part of the story, but there is this huge transformation opportunity with AI, and we're going to go into some more specific use cases later today. But for me, there's a couple of different areas just at a high level. There's a lot that can be done around productivity. So how can we save a lot of time? How can we ingest contracts and read contracts automatically? How can we get suggestions and duplicate and replicate agreements, so it saves a lot of keying. So there's a lot of productivity benefits. There's also a lot of use cases around insights and simulations. So being able to run 1 million simulations of different buying and selling scenarios against all of the agreements you have, and then coming up with recommendations for how you could slightly change your buying behavior, slightly change your selling behavior, and actually generate more, again, margin, cash flow, revenue, whatever it might be that you're looking for. And there's also some cases around full automation and agentic AI, where the AI can actually take a really complex process and break it down and kind of make decisions along the way. So my favorite example of this, just to whet everyone's appetite, is I've actually seen successful deployments now of companies that are negotiating using an AI agent. So they might have, say, 500 really big suppliers, and that's all, they've got humans working on those. But then they've got 2,000 much smaller suppliers where they may have had no agreement in place, no rebate in place. But now the AI is actually going and negotiating with that long tail of suppliers. And it's really good because it says, what would you like, Mrs. Supplier? Would you like to be paid faster? Would you like more growth? Would you like to charge more? You can't have all of those, by the way. You pick what you want. It's sliding scales. And then based on what the supplier says, then the AI actually comes up with a proposal and says, well, look, we can pay you 30 days faster, but we need a 1% rebate or a 2% settlement discount. And then the supplier can decline that, and it can continue. But it's capable of actually doing 2,000 concurrent negotiations. And the supplier feedback has been positive. Suppliers actually like it. In some cases, they prefer it than negotiating with a human. So this is just an example. But this is what I'm seeing and what I think will start to become the mainstream. So having overrun by 2 minutes and 20 seconds already, let me just bring this into land and kind of explain or just summarize the 3 big pillars that I've talked about today. I think in terms of intelligence, I do think that rebates and pricing are going to be much more intelligent, where it's going to provide the optimum commercial terms to each trading partner, so that's each customer and each supplier, and at each moment, which will be dynamic and variable. So it needs to be intelligent. In terms of unification, we do need to integrate how we manage pricing and rebates together, and every other type of commercial agreement. And you all have many. Again, contract support, market development funds, co-ops, all the different funds that we have need to be unified in one place. And we need to break down silos between you and your trading partners, so you're doing this in one location. And then AI-powered productivity, AI-powered analytics, and AI-powered automation of processes is going to be really critical as well. So Revenue 4.0 isn't about the future. This is about right now. It's about the courage to rethink how we manage commercial relationships. It's about the vision to see past the obstacles that we have today and the ability to execute at the speed of opportunity. And this transformation is well underway. I can assure you, looking at lots of different companies that we work with and that I work with every day, this is well underway. So this isn't about whether it will happen, but it's about when it will happen in your business. And I'm going to leave you with just a very final thought, because in times of volatility, there's really 2 types of organizations. There's those that are swept along by the storm, and then there's those that harness those same forces for competitive advantage. And change is happening faster than ever before inside our organizations and also outside our organizations. And with the right setup, everyone in this room can accelerate profitable growth. You need commercial partners and platforms that can operate in this volatile world, not just built to respond, but to anticipate. Not just to protect margins, but to increase them. And not just to survive volatility, but to thrive because of it. Thank you very much.